Okay, so what we're going to look at now is how we can add floors to our buildings, and then how we can add floor surfaces to them. But also bearing in mind that in say the case of this cafe, we'd want a different floor surface in different parts of the building. So for instance, the dining area might want a wooden floor, but the kitchen area might want a tiled floor. Now it doesn't actually matter if there's tables and chairs and cookers and things in the room. It'll still put the floor surface in where we want it, and it will just put them floating back on top of it again. But for the sake of this demonstration, I've taken all the things out of the room area, so they're empty. One thing I want to draw your attention to before we do any of that though is where Revit keeps the actual materials images. So if I bring up a folder here now, okay, now if you look at the top up here, basically in this PC, on the C drive, which is the local hard disk, there's a folder called Program Files 86. Inside there's a folder called Common Files. Inside Common Files is one called Autodesk Shared, and that contains one called Materials. Inside Materials there's another one called Textures. There's a few different versions of it. This is in version 1, and we're actually in a folder called Mats. Now that's a really long file location. But the reason I'm showing you that is because this is where Revit keeps all of the different sorts of material images that you could use. But you can add your own. Now if you add your own into the same folder, it makes them much easier to find them later. You could have materials anywhere on your computer and bring them in to make your own materials. But it's going to be difficult later on when you try and, come back to this in a couple of weeks' time and you're trying to remember where everything is, because Revit's not going to necessarily know if you've renamed something or moved something. So these three up here, called number 1 carpet tiles, multicolored 256, and this one here and this one here, these are ones I've made myself. So literally all I did was jump on the internet. I looked for a particular type of material, so I typed in coloured carpet tiles, and I downloaded the image from Google Images, and I made it the same size as theirs. So in Photoshop I just made it 256 squared. You can see the dimensions there. Now I think even if you have different sized ones it still works, but I thought it was best to keep to the same ones that Revit are using. Now you can see there's an awful lot that come with it. I'm on a tiny part of this. If I scroll through, these are all the different ones that Revit have got built in already. So I can use any of these different sorts of carpets and floorings and bricks, and there's a whole range of stuff in there, all waiting to be used. But this is what I'm going to do to actually create my own materials. So this time I'm going to do things in reverse. I'm going to close that window for the time being. Before I actually make my floor, I'm going to make some floor materials up in the first instance. So that actually starts off in the same way as we did with a paint. You go to the Manage tab and you bring up the materials. And what I need to do is I need to find a material that I want to copy. So there's one called oak flooring. So I know oak flooring, it comes with Revit. That is a material which is a flooring material. So I'm going to use that one and I'm going to duplicate it. Same as I did with paint. Hit duplicate. I'm going to give her a name. So I'm going to do the same thing. When I named all my paint ones paint, I'm going to name all my flooring ones flooring to make it more straightforward. So I'm going to do flooring red carpet first. Same as I did last time, I'm going to apply that, and while I'm on it, I'm going to go into the physical. I'm going to go to the. Yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to check in appearance, and I'm going to get rid of this link because I don't want it to be linked to that original one. And I'm going to just check that's not saying it linked anywhere else. I'm going to unlink it there as well, so the information's unlinked and the appearance is unlinked. It's not in any of the other ones, and I'm going to apply. So now it knows that flooring red carpet is something different to my oak flooring. However, at the moment it's still the same thing because I haven't changed anything here. Now at the moment, that folder I showed you where all of those things are kept is this link here. Okay, I'm going to click on that link and it's going to take me into that same folder. Here's the folder, and the ones that I made myself are going to be right at the top. I could use any of theirs. I'm just going to use mine for now. There's my red carpet. I'm going to choose that and click open. So it's going to put that in there. It's not anything wooden, so I don't need to have a stain on it, so I'm going to take the stain off, and it's not going to be used for furniture, it's going to be used for flooring. and it doesn't need a satin varnish because it's a carpet, I'm going to say unfinished. So it's just going to look like that. And again, I'm going to hit apply. Now remember, if I click OK, it closes. If I hit apply, it saves the changes, but it doesn't close the window up. It's still being called Red Oak Natural. So if I go into the graphics window, sorry, if I go into the physical window, I can change the name here. Now again, this is not necessarily important. It's not going to stop it from working, but it's sometimes if you want to search for things, it's going to make it easier. Still got the name here as well, so I'm going to change it here as well. And I'm going to hit apply. So now I've actually got a new carpet, sorry, a new flooring that I've created myself called Red Carpet. You can see from the 0 here, it's not linked to anything else. It's its own asset. Anything that I'm not happy with, so it doesn't need to necessarily have a cut pattern, which is what you get with wood. So I can change that to none by saying no pattern if I choose to. So sometimes these things can have an effect on it, but everything else looks like it's okay now. So what I'm going to do, just off the screen while I pause this video, I'm going to make myself a couple of more. So instead of just flooring red carpet, I've got maybe 3 to choose from, and then I'll show you how we apply them. Okay, so I've created a couple of different floor materials, and if we go into manage materials and have a look, basically I called them all starting with the word flooring. So if I type that in, I can find them quite easily. So I've got a ceramic tile, a couple of carpets, and a few different wooden ones. That's what we're going to use in a minute to test this. Before we do that, we need to actually create our floor, because if I look at this now, you can see basically it's just walls floating in space. So I'm going to come back to my architecture tab. In a moment I'm going to click on floor, but before I do that I just want to check some settings. So if I click on floor plans, I've got a setting here called parts visibility. Now my floor plan part visibility should say show parts. Okay, if it doesn't, I use the drop down, but show parts is what this one has to say. I need to go to ground floor and I need to check the same thing, but this time where it says parts visibility, it should say show both. Now if I don't get these two the right way round, it doesn't render the surface finishes properly and they look really weird. So if yours ends up looking a bit weird, that's what you need to come back and check. You can change them later on, but it's always best to do it in the beginning. So I'm going to go into my ground floor. There's my ground floor view. I'm going to go to floor, and the first thing I need to do is to actually create the outline of the floor shape. Now at this moment it says extend into wall up here, and if I click you can see it's going to go to the dotted line. I don't want to do that. I'm going to take that off, and basically the default setting is the one we're using, which is this pick walls one up here. Now if you've got a strange shaped room, you could always use all these different drawing tools yourself to actually plot out the surface area of your room, but I'm just going to go for this one, which is pick the walls. And now I've turned that extend off. All I've got to do is click on the dotted line on the inside of each wall, and it puts this pink line around it for me. Now this is basically saying this is my floor, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to say yes. Now what I want to do is I want to divide this floor up into different sections. So I know I've got a dining room, a kitchen, and I've got a kind of toilet, so they're going to be my areas of division. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this one here which says create parts. So I'm going to create 3 parts in the end. I'm going to divide to make my parts, and I need to edit the sketch to show those parts. So I have to click those 3 things, and basically I'm going to take a line that starts off up out here somewhere, goes right the way through the building, comes out the other side somewhere. So it has to actually clear it. I don't want this rubber banding line, so I'm going to press escape, and I'm going to draw another line now which comes again from outside of my building through into where it meets this line. So that's my division. Now I'm going to have this area, this area, and this area. All I have to do is click yes to finish the edit and yes to finish the modification. It doesn't look like anything's changed, but now if I go into my 3D view again, I'll see that if I hover over those room areas, this one's harder to see because it's I have to move, there we go, I have to move that one to see it in a minute. Those are the 3 part areas. So for this instance, if I click on this one here, it turns blue to say it's been selected, but I need to come down into the properties panel and I need to move to the one that says materials by original. I don't want it to be by the original, so I'm going to take that off and I'm going to choose my own category. So in my category, I'm going to come back, and I guess you've guessed by now what I'm going to do. I'm going to type in flooring and I'm going to go for one of those. So I'm going to try my carpet, which is coloured tiles. I just need to say OK down here, and when I click off it, there is my coloured tiles. Now it looks a bit weird in this, but if I actually zoom in, you'll be able to see there's the tiles. Further in, you can actually see the carpet themselves in there, which is pretty funky. So I'm going to go back out to that normal zoom view. I'm going to choose my second room area, or my second part. I'm going to come down again. I'm going to go for my taking off my tick off material by original. Choose my category view again, and this time I'm going to go in, I'm going to do flooring, and I'm going to choose my ceramic tiles. So there's my ceramic tile. Say OK to that. Again, you can't see an awful lot, but if I zoom in on that area, you can see there's my ceramic tiles. Now I can change any of these surfaces as many times as I want, in the same way that I did with the paint, and you can obviously, depend on how many you've made, you can experiment around with it. One thing I've noticed on here, I think my doors have left a bit of a gap there, so I don't really want to see the door embedded like that. So I could actually come back to my door, and on my door settings, in fact I might do this in plan view. I'm going to go up to my ground floor. There's my door. I'm going to flick it round the other way. Okay, so it opens outwards instead of inwards. I'll show you the reason for that in a minute. Do the same with this one. So now if I go back to my 3D view, I haven't got this funny little bit of white showing because the doors now go right up against the edge of that wall and they open outwards instead of inwards. It's just a little thing, but you can play around with things like that if you want to make your designs look tidier later on. Okay, good luck with that.